A lot of people seem to be focusing on Dillian Whyte's lawyer, calling him an idiot, saying he's unprofessional and that he shouldn't have advised his client to sign a contract he weren't happy with and so on. Well, unless there's some vital information I'm not privy to here, then these people seem to be completely missing the point. When the WBC first ordered this fight, Dillian Whyte's team had 1 month of open negotiations with Team Fury, during which time they were trying to get the deal they wanted. But the two sides were unable to reach an agreement, so the fight went to purse bids and Team Fury won. At that point, the WBC standard bout agreement kicks in. This is a contract which isn't drawn up by Team Fury or Team Whyte. This is a contract drawn up by the WBC. But Whyte weren't happy with this contract because, among other things, it only entitles him to a 20% purse split when interim champions are normally entitled to up to 45%. So his legal team have been battling with the WBC to try and get that amended. In addition to that, they've been trying to get certain assurances from Team Fury, such as cash in escrow, because they're concerned about not being paid in light of Bricktop's reputation, the financial state of his business, and the enormous size of the purse. But these assurances were not forthcoming. So Whyte's team delayed signing the contract and were basically threatening to pull out of the fight unless they got what they wanted. But Team Fury wouldn't budge. Whyte didn't have enough leverage over them to make them budge, so they called his bluff and he ended up signing right at the last minute. So when Bricktop is asking Dillian Whyte's lawyer why he told his client to sign a contract he weren't happy with, inferring that it was bad advice, it's a ridiculous question. It's a question designed to bamboozle the audience and the presenters, which he seems to have done successfully. Because the reality is, if Dillian Whyte hadn't signed that contract, he'd have lost his position as mandatory challenger and Fury would have moved on to fight someone else. So what, are you saying that Dillian Whyte's lawyer should have told him to walk away and not take the fight? It's completely ridiculous. As far as I can tell, Whyte's lawyer has done all he can from the very start to get his client the best deal possible. But the limitations of the WBC bout agreement have left him trying to negotiate with Team Fury when they don't really have much leverage over them. Team Fury have refused to give Dillian Whyte any pay-per-view upside. They've refused to give him cash in escrow. They've refused to give him any more than a handful of tickets. Tyson Fury has allegedly been given 10,000 tickets, but Whyte's only been given 5 or 6 tickets, which is crazy. Team Fury say that they're not contractually obligated to give him any more than that. So Whyte said, okay, 2 can play at that game. If you're not going to do anything outside of what you're contractually obligated to, then neither am I. Therefore, I'm not going to turn up to the press conferences. I'm not going to publicize the fight on social media. And furthermore, I'm not going to let you use my image on fight posters without my permission. He's simply responding in kind to what Team Fury are doing. Now, Bricktop says that Dillian Whyte is contractually obligated to make a reasonable effort to promote the fight, but Whyte's lawyer says that the contract doesn't give an explicit definition of what constitutes a reasonable effort, quote unquote. So perhaps they believe that all Whyte needs to do to fulfill that obligation is turn up on fight week. After all, he doesn't want to risk testing positive for anything, right? That seems to be what their argument is. Bricktop says that he's never seen anything like this before and he's acting all outraged. But in reality, Tyson Fury didn't turn up to the press conference for the Klitschko rematch. So Bricktop must have a very short memory. Furthermore, when have you ever heard of a mandatory challenger only being given 6 tickets for a fight in front of 100,000 people? I mean, that is absurd. Bricktop also said that he's not obliged to set up an escrow account and that is Whyte's lawyer's responsibility. Well, I don't know all the ins and outs of escrow in this situation as far as legalities, but I would have thought that if Whyte's lawyer sets up an escrow account, unless there's a contract in place that says Team Fury need to put money in it, then setting up the escrow is pointless. There needs to be a written agreement in place first. I think the reason that Dillian Whyte's lawyer has gone public with all this is because he's trying to find some extra leverage from somewhere. Maybe try and get the public on his side, but that seems to have backfired by the looks of it because the public can't seem to see through Bricktop's BS. You see, this is why live debates or arguments aren't necessarily the best way of getting to the bottom of an issue, because Arguing is a skill. Some people are more aggressive and better at thinking on their feet than other people, and they're able to use this to get the audience to focus on straw man arguments. It doesn't mean that they're right. They're just better at bamboozling the audience into thinking that they're right. And as far as I can tell, that's exactly what Bricktop did in that argument with Dillian Whyte's lawyer on TalkSport. All he did was come in hurling insults and constructing straw men. This idea that the lawyer gave Dillian bad advice by telling him to sign a contract he weren't happy with is absurd. What else should he have advised Dillian Whyte to do? Walk away from the fight? Would that have been good advice? It's completely ridiculous. But again, the public fall for this kind of stuff. Some people say that all these pre-fight issues are just mind games by Dillian Whyte. Even Eddie Hearn has tried to infer that at times. But I think that's all just PR and spin from Hearn, trying to massage Whyte's ego and stay in his good books. I think the Bricktop and Team Fury are actually doing everything in their power to upset Dillian Whyte, trying to make him feel violated and disrespected so he gets wound up and it negatively impacts on his performance. I think that's what's really going on, in my opinion anyway. I mean, why else would you allocate so few tickets to someone? You're not going to do that unless you're trying to wind him up. Now, as I said earlier, if there's some vital information that I'm not privy to, which subsequently comes to my attention and necessitates that I amend what I've just said, then I'll do so in a future video. But as it stands right now, based upon the information I'm aware of, it appears as though Bricktop is trying to gaslight Dillian Whyte and gaslight the public, claiming that he's completely innocent and that he's being totally fair and more than generous, and that all the blame lies exclusively with Dillian Whyte and his lawyer. Meanwhile, he continues to turn the screw behind the scenes. It's really very twisted behavior, but that's what this guy's like, in my experience. He's a very twisted individual. So that's my take. I feel like I had to add some clarity there because a lot of people seem unable to see through what Bricktop was saying during that argument. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. If you're tired of the biased narratives and mass censorship on mainstream platforms, and you want to be part of a community of critical thinkers who love free speech just as much as you do, then come and join me on Patreon and access my weekly no-holds-barred, censorship-free podcast where we lift the lid on a wide variety of controversial topics. It's not mainstream friendly, it's not politically correct, but that's the whole point. We dare to stand as a beacon of reason against an army of insanity. Just head on over to my Patreon page and select the tier called Hatman Hot Topics. You'll gain access to a minimum of 2 hours of exclusive content every single week, including podcasts, videos, interviews, live stream Q&As, as well as my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. Not to mention a vast back catalog of hundreds of hours of previous episodes. You can listen via the Patreon app with the option to download in high quality MP3. We've also got an Element group where you can come and chat and hang out with myself and other members. Unlike Discord, it has full end-to-end encryption, is decentralized, and it's 100% censorship free. You can also send voice notes as well as much larger audio and video files than you can on Discord. So come and sign up on Patreon. There's no contract, there's no commitment, you can cancel at any time, and it's cheaper than a cup of coffee. So I'll see you over there. I'm out.